Hey everyone, I am here to do a second part to my Primal, A Blood and Bone review. Now, the reason I want to do this is because I attended the 2-hour Q&A session with JLA for her book club. All questions about the Primal, A Blood and Bone. And I think from hearing her perspectives and listening to her talk about the books, I just wanted to, wanted to walk you through some of the things that I learned along the way as she was talking and answering questions, and also some kind of like revelations and exciting little bits that we get to look forward to for the next book. I feel so much better about the ending of this book, and I hope that when you get done with this video, you'll feel so much better about it too. Still hurt, but I can understand and I see where JLA is coming from, and it's not just to purposely hurt her readers. So let's get into it. So the series, timeline, and setting. And forgive me, as I kind of go through these notes, keep in mind I put bullet points, and these are my notes from what JLA says, but not her specific words. So this is paraphrased. This is my understanding of what she said. I just want to put that out there that I really appreciate that she spent 2 hours on Zoom. I'm not going to capture every single word that she said, but these were my kind of highlights that I have from the session. So she did confirm that Fall of Ruin and Wrath is set after the Blood and Ash series. It takes place in a different realm called the Continents, not where Solus and Atlantia are located, obviously, but when Sarah steps into the different realm, it's New York City. I learned some I am not an audiobook listener, so I pronounce things so much differently than how JLA pronounce things. So I really need to go back and listening to these books on audiobook, because I feel like I will pronounce them much more correctly than I do currently, just from reading and creating my own pronunciations up. So there are some Easter eggs in Fall and Ruin of Wrath, and I do need to go back and reread these. She mentioned a scene where, specifically where Thorne talked about old buildings that still existed, the way that it once was. So very interesting tidbits. Let's go back and read those chapters to see what kind of tidbits we can, come up with. New York was actually chosen for the recognizable landmarks like Hudson Bay and Statue of Liberty area, so I thought that was really cool that she added that in. Now, for character deaths and potential resurrections, or not so much resurrections, one of the main things at the end of the book is that Delano passes away. He is definitely dead. JLA confirmed that he will not be coming back. She kind of said it's necessary in terms of when you're working and you're fighting this powerful of beings. People are gonna die. Valens are gonna die. I think she mentioned that she was actually surprised. No one really asking about Valen. I don't think we care as much about him as we do our marshmallow Delano over here. He can't be brought back more than once, which was established in the War of Two Queens. She wanted to give a false sense of security in this scene. I see it now. I understand why she did it. I am still upset, but I think from what JLI said is this was her kind of plan all along. A Primal does die at the end of the book, or at least hadn't completely died, but very injured. We'll see what happens in that first chapter of the next book. The next book is going to pick off exactly for Casteel and for Poppy where this book ended. So, and scene, Millie walking into the throne room and scene. And for Poppy, exactly where she left off. And we'll learn a little bit about what has happened. But the idea here is that it picks up exactly where we left off on this cliffhanger. So, character relationships. So, Casteel's arrogance reminds Addie's of kin. So Casteel looks a lot more like Addie's, darker hair versus Malik's lighter hair. That edge of recklessness, Casteel has always come from this bloodline, which we do learn, or at least I think she strongly hints that this is Thorn's arrogance. So we're kind of learning that is Casteel's bloodline is coming from Thorn. Heartmate bonds cannot be removed by others. So they could technically be ended, but not by someone else. So if, the joining or Colas was able to fracture the heartmate bond, that is not possible. He can fracture the joining. It wouldn't necessarily kill all of them. It would just kill the one that he killed. But essentially, she mentioned that Kieran didn't feel what happened at the end because he and Poppy aren't heartmates, which I know that there is the fandom that believes that these three will be in love with each other. I've read all of JLA's books. I've not read one that was a reverse harem or even close to. It is a special kind of love, but it's a different love. Casteel felt it first due to that heartmate bond and would feel it stronger because of the heartfelt bond. Then she kind of hinted that, maybe Kieran just hasn't felt it yet. The joining bond is still in play. So it hasn't been, hurt by Colas in any way. So the joining is still there. Obviously, the relationship is fractured, but she kind of mentioned that this has to be done in normal ways. I don't know that there's much therapy or many therapists around in a war zone, but it kind of sounds like she's saying they both just need, or all three of them need, a very long talk. So, Casteel's emotional arc, because this was a big topic, and even in my video, because it's not the Casteel that I knew, but I thought it was so funny as JLA was like, what, you mean the guy in the first book that cut off someone's hand and strapped dead bodies to the wall wasn't over emotional or rash or, he is impulsive. He is still Casteel. These things have been obviously heightened due to the essence in him. So stop calling Casteel too emotional. He has every right to be angry, upset, and worried. In real life, we try to say, like, guys shouldn't be upset, or like, how do you say, is like, tone down your emotions. I don't think that's necessarily fair. We're forgetting that, or well, JLA doesn't think that's necessarily fair. We're forgetting that Casteel was just captured again. His finger was cut off. He was just recovering from the being taken and being tortured for that many years when he met Poppy. And that was, so long ago. So now why are we expecting him a month, a couple months after being captured, that he's completely fine? He has every right to be over emotional. It was his second time. He had his wife in a coma. She was just possessed. Dealing with the true primal of death here. Like, the stakes are high. They are all in, dealing with trauma of their own. We're not just dealing with Craven or revenants anymore. We're dealing with a very scary being that's able to, and that wants to kill everybody. Sow death and destruction. His love for Poppy, though, has not diminished at all, which I think we all know. They're heartmates. He didn't want to bring up that vow because he knew it would cause a fallout in a time when they're dealing with they're dealing with Colas. They're dealing with the unknown. This is not the best time for them to fight. So they're just trying to pretend that everything's okay. And he didn't want to cause the fallout. This was one of the most realistic relationship dynamics I think that she said that she's ever written, just because it's very much like a normal relationship. Normal relationships fight about things. You know, even we don't have wars going on and Primal of Death's out to get us, but I fight with my husband, but I care enough to fight. And that's kind of what she said is when you're in a relationship, you care enough to fight, but you sometimes also you don't want to fight. You're not in the mood, you know. You just want to keep the peace. And I think Casteel was trying to keep the peace because he's dealing with a lot. But they're both kind of, they're going through relationship issues. That's going to happen, which I thought was really interesting kind of take on it. I never really thought about it that way. I was just like, why is Casteel being so whiny? And I think we all were. But when you look at it from that perspective, is like these JLA is trying to make these characters realistic, like to how they would be if they were you or me. So we need to stop calling Casteel too emotional. He's allowed to have his emotions. He's been through a lot. I mean, how would you feel if you didn't have a finger? Poppy really did never give Casteel the option to stop her, unlike Naitos and Sarah. It's going to be something that's addressed in the next book, so we'll have to wait and see. So we know Poppy's not in the best place at the end. And she basically said, we asked the question of what happened to Poppy. And, Poppy is not in a good place at the end of Primal. So we'll see where it picks right back up. She explained that she had to cut content due to the page count. There is a bigger fight scene between Poppy and Colas coming. So, it's not just the scene and that's it. There is more coming. I guess she wrote about 15 plus potentially different versions, moving scenes around for balance. It was very difficult, I think, to squeeze everything into one book, which is why we broke it out into 2 parts. It sounds like it was very difficult to just get the length of, and this is a decent sized book, right? Okay. I think she had troubles getting it down to this length. It would have been, much longer if she would have been able to by the editor. So, and the timeline I thought was actually kind of interesting because I was assuming, that it was only a few days, not a lot happened really, or even just like a week, but it was over a period of time of like couple weeks, maybe 3 weeks, pushing towards a month is kind of what she said. And I talked about this in my last review too, is the sexual trauma that happened with Poppy. And she said, yes, we are going to address it. She has no memory of it, so it feels like it happened to someone else. Both from, Satoria's experiences with Colas and her own with the Duke. She's having difficulty time processing it, but she's got to acknowledge it first before she talks to Cass and, Kieran about it. Sarah, is a little bit different than Poppy, where she minimized her trauma, like that others had it worse. But I think in Poppy's case is she hasn't had the chance to accept it yet. She's still kind of in denial. But JLA did say that she feels a responsibility to address, these real, very real issues, even though it is, fantasy context. So we will talk about it in the next book. Future book plans. So it does seem like we're contracted for a Malik and Millie book, which I'm really excited about. She did mention in the next book that Millie's reaction to seeing Addie's will be really funny because he looks just like Malik. So I'm really excited. It was interesting to see JLA kind of talk about Millie as one of her favorite characters, just because she gets to be so absolutely random with how, Millie responds to things. So she doesn't plan to have any Kieran point of view chapters, but that does not mean it won't happen. So keep maybe asking. If it feels right, she'll do it. We will find out more about Ian in the next book, and she did confirm as well that Coralina is Ian's mother. Definitely. I know there were some conspiracy theories out there, but definitely Ian's mother. She did kind of talk about a little bit about like the soul eater. So, and there was a question around this, but she did say that eventually the main characters can feed on pleasure and emotions, kind of like Thorn, which I think is an interesting hint to them being very similar in nature, or at least in powers, as, you know, these, you know, our fates here. So, character reveals and some mysteries that we need to go searching for. We cannot confirm if Leopold is Eris, but there are some dropped in your face hints. So we need to go some Easter egg hunting. She's like, once you know who, Leopold, once you understand, you know, who Leopold is, well, I'll be like, well, duh. Whoever Addie's hooked up with is important, and it's right in front of you. So let's please go find it. Penelope and Holland's child identity will be revealed in the next book. Millicent and Coralina are not the same person. I know some people thought that might be the fact, but it, she confirmed. Millicent really wasn't allowed around Poppy. I know, JLA said she didn't always really listen, but also that Poppy doesn't really remember her childhood due to trauma. So that was a little thing that she snuck in there. Kieran has changeling in his bloodline, like Jasper. Callum. This one was interesting. I'm not fully convinced on how she's going to do this. But Callum is going to surprise readers. He's been around for a while. He's had a lot of time to, it sounds like kind of plot here. But he's not secretly a good person, but there is more complexity to his storyline that we're going to learn a little bit more about. So I'm interested in that. So, I think a lot of people are going to be, from what JLA said, is surprised about Callum. Spoilers. For the next book, we will have another baby Draken. So he's going to be a complete handful, or he or she is going to be a complete handful. Really likes turkey legs. Likes turkey legs. Chews on Nikita's hair. And might try to eat Reaver. That is going to be hilariously interesting. I'm really interested to see how that's even possible that there's a baby Draken. So Poppy meets Penelope and discusses the prophecy. They're going to realize, they misread it, warning about different type of primal. She did confirm that Poppy was the harbinger. Colas is the great conspirator. Destruction refers to Casteel becoming that type of primal. Or them all really coming that type of primal. But there's something special, I think, about Casteel, the way that she talked about how he was able to shift so quickly. And we'll see how this kind of goes, but I'm very excited for the next book. I feel much more confident in the next book and the content and like the way that she chose to do the characters justice in this book after actually getting to hear it from her perspective. I get it. Is it what I wanted? No, because we all read these books as a fiction of we have these they're in our head, you know, they're a fiction of our imagination, and we don't think about them being real. But when you try to put them into like the shoes of like, okay, well, if Casteel was like my next door neighbor, of course, like these were all emotions that he has a right to. Nobody's perfect, relationships aren't perfect. And I think she's doing the characters like you know, she's doing them justice by having them, you know, not everything's perfect. So I hope you're excited for the next book, and I'm really looking forward to hearing, you know, how the next story pans out, especially knowing the tidbits that we do with like baby Drakens, and that they're all gonna, you know, hopefully start getting along. But I think things are gonna come to a head in the next book, and I'm really excited to see exactly how JLA makes it happen. So we'll talk to you next time.